The moment I stepped onto the tarmac at Fort Valor, every eye seemed to latch onto me like I was a joke. "Who let the city girl in?" I heard someone whisper behind me. My boots scuffed against the concrete, worn and patched, and I felt their judgment in every stare. Drill Sergeant Miller's voice cut through the morning air like a whip. "Private Hayes, front and center. Don't waste my time looking lost." I froze, my hands tight at my sides, heart hammering. The platoon snickered, a low ripple that felt like it went straight through me. I tried to make myself small, hoped no one would notice my frayed uniform, the threadbare straps of my pack. But there was no hiding. Breakfast in the mess hall was worse. Recruits shoved trays, nudged elbows, let their laughter echo against the metal tables. Blake, the guy who seemed to thrive on making everyone uncomfortable, dropped a tray with a clang beside mine. "Lost again, city girl," he sneered. The room erupted. I kept my fork halfway to my mouth, not daring to look up, swallowing humiliation with each bite. I could feel every pair of eyes weighing me, waiting for me to crack. During morning inspection, Drill Sergeant Miller paced down the line. His boots thundered against the floor. "What's your excuse for looking like that, Private? You think this is a fashion show?" The words stung sharper than any push-up could. I swallowed, squared my shoulders, and whispered, "Yes, sir," though the sneer from Miller suggested he didn't believe me. He barked again. "Move it!" The platoon shuffled, their eyes darting to me, some smirking, others just curious. I noticed Corporal Ramirez at the end of the line. Quiet, observant, never the one to speak up. He watched me closely, his gaze measuring, thoughtful. For the first time that day, I felt like someone actually saw me. Not the uniform, not the hair pulled too low, not the supposed weakness, but me. And for a moment, I clung to that glance, a small anchor in the chaos. Later on the obstacle course, the rain had soaked the ground, turning the dirt to mud. I slipped once, twice, each time drawing sharp looks from my peers. "Pathetic," someone muttered behind me. My hands tore on the ropes, my boots caked with mud, but I kept moving. Step by step, I reminded myself. It's not about what they see, it's about what I can endure. By midday, I was exhausted, drenched, and still standing, while Blake laughed from the sidelines, calling out, "Hey, rookie, need a hand? Or just a mop?" I didn't respond. I retied my boots, adjusted my pack, and pushed forward. Each step felt heavy, but there was a rhythm now, a quiet rhythm only I could hear. The platoon's laughter was background noise. I began to tune it out. Back in the barracks, after showers and laundry that did little to erase the grime, I unpacked my bag. A photo slipped out, a memory of someone who had once told me, "Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet that survives the longest." I pressed my fingers to it and slipped it back into my pack. No one knew, and I intended to keep it that way. Evening came, and the platoon gathered for a final drill before lights out. Blake and his friends whispered, testing boundaries, trying to break my composure. I felt their eyes, their judgment, the expectation that I would falter. I didn't. I moved with careful, measured precision, silent but determined. I could see the confusion flicker across some faces, the slight hesitation in the usually confident steps of those who mocked me earlier. What I never expected was the small shift in the air, a tension that said something had changed. Not fully, not yet, but enough to plant a seed. Ramirez gave me the slightest nod as we lined up for dismissal, just enough to let me know he had noticed. The hint of respect, quiet as it was, felt like the first spark of a fire that had been buried deep inside me. I left the barracks that night, mud drying on my uniform, aches and bruises hidden beneath my clothes. I didn't smile, I didn't boast, but I walked with a rhythm now, a quiet defiance, a promise to myself. They thought this was the end of it. They had no idea it had only just begun. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The rain hadn't let up for hours and the obstacle course was slick mud from end to end. Every step I took, my boots sank, my fingers slipped on the ropes, and my uniform felt heavier with water than it ever had dry. The others were shouting, stomping, moving faster than me. Blake stood near the end, arms crossed, a grin plastered on his face. "Look at you, Hayes," he called. "Still dragging your sorry self through mud like a lost puppy?" The laughter behind him was loud, brutal. I didn't flinch. I kept climbing, swinging, crawling, my hands blistering with each motion, refusing to give him the satisfaction. During a short break, the platoon huddled under a makeshift shelter, shaking off water. I found a corner and pulled my soaked jacket tighter. I watched Blake swagger past, patting his chest like he owned the place. That's when Ramirez came up beside me, holding a small compass. "You might need this," he said quietly. Just a nod. Nothing else. I slipped it into my pocket without a word. No one noticed. But that little gesture, it kept me moving, kept me believing. Lunch in the mess hall was no easier. The line was chaotic, trays clanging, voices raised. I moved last, hoping to avoid trouble, but Derek leaned over my shoulder and dropped his tray with a loud crash. "Hey, city girl, why don't you try to eat before the real soldiers get hungry?" Everyone laughed. I took a slow bite, eyes down, swallowing humiliation with each chew. When he flicked mashed potatoes across my shirt, I paused, wiped it, and continued eating. Not a word, not a single sound. The silence around me, the tension in the room was growing. Some were beginning to notice. Some weren't sure what to make of me. Later, the drills got worse. Repetition, endurance, exhaustion, push-ups, burpees, sprints. My lungs burned. My muscles screamed. Lance jogged up alongside me during sprints. "Look at those shoes, Hayes. Giving out already? Or is that just you?" The jeers followed me all morning. I fell, stumbled, hands hitting the wet ground. But I got back up. Every time. Not a word. I tuned out the laughter, focused on one thing, moving forward. At the navigation drill, the woods stretched endlessly. Maps in hand, compasses set, squads scattered. I checked my map under a tree. When Kyle, the wary kid with an ego bigger than his shoulders, appeared. "Lost again, Dora?" he mocked. "Or just picking flowers?" The others laughed. He snatched my map and tore it in half, tossing pieces into the wind. My stomach sank. I froze. But then something inside me clicked. I didn't panic. I followed the terrain, estimating directions, every step careful, precise. Step by step, I was catching up, alone, against the ridicule, against the doubt. By the time I reached the checkpoint, Kyle's laughter had faltered. Something had shifted, though I didn't celebrate. I kept moving. Rifle drills came next. M4s, 2 minutes, full disassembly and reassembly. Everyone struggled, fumbling pins, swearing. Lance finished messy, grinning. I stepped up, calm, precise. Each move deliberate, measured, perfect. Pin out, bolt-free parts in exact alignment. 52 seconds, no mistakes. The instructor's eyes widened. "Where did you learn to do that?" one muttered. I said simply, "Practice." That was all. But behind me, whispers were spreading. The seed of doubt, the first flicker of respect. By the afternoon, exhaustion was setting in. My pack felt heavier with each drill. Blake tried again, tripping me slightly during a perimeter exercise. I fell, mud splattering, and the group laughed. I paused, catching my breath, then continued the work. My fingers moved methodically, cleaning ropes, tying knots. No one helped. No one cheered. Except Ramirez, quietly observing from the sidelines. That little nod he gave when I finished silently, without fanfare, was enough. The night drills were merciless. Flares lit the sky. Orders shouted over chaos. Cadets fumbled under stress, but I moved alone, securing positions, checking ropes, and making adjustments no one saw. Marcus, trying to intimidate me, kicked dirt over my hands, laughed. I paused, looked at him calmly. "Done?" I asked. He blinked, unsure, and turned away. By the time the instructors checked, Marcus's own section had failed inspection. The tension in the yard was different. A quiet ripple of awareness was spreading. I was no longer invisible. Back in the barracks, soaked and exhausted, I unpacked my bag. pulled out a photograph of someone I'd trained with years ago, someone whose voice had shaped my discipline and patience. I traced the edge with a fingertip and tucked it back, a memory of lessons learned, of silent preparation, of strength honed in shadows. I didn't speak. I didn't boast. I let the night hold the weight of what I had endured. Then it happened. The final drill before lights out, a one-on-one simulated takedown. Lance, fists clenched, a smirk daring me to fail, charged. Before he could land a punch, I moved. I sidestepped, neutralized him with the smallest adjustment of his momentum, and pinned him safely on the ground. Silence. The platoon froze. The instructor's jaw dropped. I released him, stood up, soaked, mud-streaked, breathing even. The weight of hours, of mockery, of doubt, had transformed into a single, undeniable statement. I could endure, I could fight, I could overcome. The reactions were instantaneous. Laughter died. Eyes widened. Blake and Lance, the ones who mocked relentlessly, stared in disbelief. Ramirez gave the faintest nod of approval. No words were necessary. I was still the same person outwardly, but inwardly something had shifted. The tension, the ridicule, the exhaustion. It had all funneled into a quiet, undeniable authority. That night as I lay in my bunk, mud drying on my uniform, the weight of what I had achieved settled into my bones. I was no longer invisible, not just surviving, growing, changing, preparing for what was coming next. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The morning fog hung low over the training grounds, a damp chill clinging to everything. The comms crackled with the instructor's voice sharp and impatient. All units, prepare for the live fire simulation. Eyes sharp, minds sharper. My squad scrambled into position, rifles slung, boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. Every nerve was on edge. The drill wasn't just about marksmanship, it was about coordination, split-second decisions, and trust. Trust I wasn't sure I had in the others. Blake was already smirking, leaning on his rifle, confident as ever. "You ready to embarrass yourself again, Hayes?" He jeered, voice carrying to the rest of the squad. Laughter rippled behind him. I kept my eyes forward, fingers steady on my grip. Ramirez slipped a quick glance at me from the corner of the field, a subtle lift of his brow, almost imperceptible, but enough to remind me I wasn't entirely alone. The simulation started. Smoke grenades popped, obscured the line of sight, and alarms blared through the speakers. Each step was calculated chaos. My squad faltered immediately. Signals missed, positions ignored, drills mismanaged. I realized fast, if I didn't take the lead, someone would get hurt, even if just in simulation. I motioned silently, repositioned the team, corrected angles. Blake scoffed. "Don't tell me you actually think you can lead us." I didn't answer. I acted. Halfway through, disaster struck. A misaligned rifle jammed in Derek's hands, panic flashing across his face. He froze and I lunged, clearing the obstruction in seconds. "Move! Keep the line tight!" I barked, letting instinct take over. The others hesitated, eyes wide, then followed. Ramirez moved in, stepped beside me, covering angles I couldn't see, his quiet presence grounding the chaos. Then came the turning point. The final objective required crossing a narrow ridge under simulated sniper fire. I led first, calculated, silent, guiding the squad. Suddenly, a rope snapped under the weight of Marcus, sending him sprawling. He cried out as if real pain had struck. The simulation paused. Blake laughed, high and cruel. "Nice going, rookie. Kill us all, why don't you?" My stomach twisted, but I ignored him. I moved to help Marcus up, checking his stance, repositioning him. It was no longer about pride. It was about survival, even in training. The twist hit like a lightning strike. As we reached the final checkpoint, the instructor's whistle shrieked, signaling immediate assessment. My squad was disorganized, exhausted, but somehow intact. Then came the unexpected. A review drone captured our every move, and playback highlighted my actions in stark relief. Every correct adjustment, every precise command, every rescue of a teammate, perfectly executed under pressure. The instructors were silent, murmurs spreading. Ramirez's eyes met mine briefly, a nod of acknowledgement, subtle but sincere. Blake's face paled. His confidence, arrogance, smirk, all of it shattered under the weight of undeniable performance. How did you, he started, voice cracking. I didn't answer. The silence of the squad, the sudden stillness in the yard spoke for me. The humiliation of the previous weeks flipped. Power had shifted, and for the first time I felt the unmistakable, solid weight of respect, not just from Ramirez or the instructors, but from everyone who had doubted me. After the simulation, the squad gathered near the obstacle course, drenched and tired. The instructors called us to attention. "Hayes," Captain Miller said, tone sharp but carrying an unusual gravity. "Step forward." I did. Boots, mud-caked, uniform soaked, chest tight with anticipation. "Your leadership under pressure," he continued, glancing at the replay screens, "saved this unit from failing. You set the standard." A hush fell. Blake's jaw tightened, eyes wide, disbelief written across his face. Derek, Marcus, and the others couldn't even speak. The room held its breath. Then Ramirez quietly stepped up behind me, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. No words, just presence. His support, once subtle, now solidified, reinforcing the quiet strength I had carried alone for so long. I felt it, that unspoken bond, and it steadied me even further. Blake tried one last jab, a thin attempt at mockery. "Yeah, maybe you're okay with drills, but combat, let's see you in a real fight." Silence. The instructor's eyes sharpened. The weight of the room shifted. I didn't flinch. Not now. I'd endured ridicule, exhaustion, doubt, and now I was ready to prove that endurance translated to power. The final challenge was live and brutal. A hand-to-hand drill against the strongest cadet in the platoon, Blake himself. He charged, fists flailing, arrogance fueling every swing. I sidestepped, anticipated, neutralized. 1, 2, 3 movements. He was off balance, exhausted from wasted energy. In 8 seconds, it was over. Blake hit the mat, gasping, stunned. No cheers, no laughter, just silence. My classmates stared. Their assumptions evaporated. The instructors nodded slowly, respect etched into their faces. Captain Miller's voice broke the silence. "Hayes, you are now an honorary instructor. Lead, teach, and let others learn what you've mastered." My heart raced, not from pride, but from recognition. The recognition that enduring injustice, mastering quiet strength, and staying disciplined had flipped the battlefield entirely. As the squad dispersed, murmurs spread. Blake retreated to the side, face red, eyes averted. Derek and Marcus were muttering, unsure, chastened. Ramirez followed quietly, giving a small grin. That single day, the power dynamic had shifted entirely. I had become the unseen force that no mockery could suppress. The steady hand in chaos, the leader who had been ignored until I had no choice but to reveal my full capability. That night, lying in the barracks, mud crusted on my boots, uniform soaked, I traced the outline of my own scars, internal and external. The humiliation, the teasing, the relentless pressure, they had forged me. Quietly, methodically, I had transformed. Tomorrow would bring more trials, but the taste of victory, of unspoken respect, was mine. And I knew that what had just happened wasn't an end. It was the beginning. I thought back to Ramirez, to his quiet support, to the subtle gestures that had made all the difference. Sometimes the strongest allies don't speak, don't act boldly. They simply notice, and that notice gives you the courage to survive. That had carried me through, and now I carried it forward for everyone who had doubted, mocked, or undercut me. As I closed my eyes preparing for whatever came next, one thought lingered. The world had underestimated me. The squad had mocked me. The instructors had doubted me. But the rules of engagement had shifted. I had endured, I had adapted, I had overcome. And when the time came for real authority, for real leadership, I would be ready. The squad, the yard, the instructors, they would remember this day. Not for Blake's arrogance, not for the mud, not even for the exhaustion. They would remember the quiet force that had moved through it all, steady and unbroken, and had emerged on top. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The morning sun cut through the thin haze over the training yard, casting long shadows across the neatly aligned boots of our platoon. Everything was quiet at first, almost deceptively so, but tension hummed beneath the surface. Blake was there, arms crossed, scowl in place, still seething from the last drill. His arrogance hadn't waned. It had only shifted into simmering resentment. I could feel the weight of every stare, every whispered comment behind my back. We were assembling for inspection, boots shining, uniforms crisp, weapons checked and rechecked. Captain Miller walked past, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. "Hayes, step forward," he called. I did, boots clicking against the concrete. I straightened, heart hammering, not from fear, but from anticipation. This moment, small as it seemed, carried the undercurrent of weeks of struggle, humiliation, and silent endurance. I met Miller's gaze. He didn't smile, but his eyes held a respect that stung Blake's pride just by existing. The squad moved into formation for the day's exercises, but the air had changed. Derek and Marcus, once unsure, now glanced at me with a mix of awe and hesitation. Ramirez, silent as ever, moved into position beside me, giving nothing away but his presence steadying me, reminding me I wasn't alone. I could see Blake calculating, planning, trying to reclaim some semblance of authority, but he was too slow, too late. The first drill was a timed obstacle course. Sweat ran down my back, mud splattered across my uniform, but I moved with precision, guiding others when needed. Blake tried to overshadow me, barking orders the way he thought a leader should, but his instructions lacked strategy. By the time we reached the wall climb, he was floundering, while I helped the squad over one by one, silently correcting their mistakes, ensuring we maintained pace. Each small victory added weight to my quiet authority. During lunch, the usual chaos of the chow hall erupted. Laughter, spilled trays. The clatter of metal echoed against the walls. Blake leaned back in his seat, smirking, whispering jabs at me for all to hear. "Looks like Captain Miller's new favorite doesn't even know how to hold a tray without spilling it." The table went quiet. Derek stifled a chuckle. Marcus bit his lip, and Ramirez looked away, pretending to eat. I simply set my tray down, nodding to no one, absorbing the insult without reacting. Inside, I felt the familiar fire, the quiet determination to rise above the mockery, to let actions speak louder than words. The second half of the day brought the real test, a coordinated mission simulation with multiple squads. Our objective was to secure a high-value location while under simulated enemy fire. The briefing was tense. Blake whispered accusations. "You're going to ruin this. Just wait and watch." I ignored him. Ramirez glanced at me, a subtle nod, his only acknowledgement needed to fuel my focus. As the mission unfolded, chaos erupted. Smoke grenades, blaring sirens, squad members miscommunicating, adrenaline spiking. One teammate, Marcus, stumbled near the edge of the simulated cliff. Time slowed. Reflexively, I grabbed him, pulling him back to safety. The others froze, watching, stunned at my reaction. Blake's mouth opened, then closed. No words could mask his shock. I barked quick commands, repositioned the squad, coordinated the angles. Ramirez covered the blind spots, seamless, silent. Our group moved with unity, precision, efficiency, something no one had expected, least of all Blake. Then came the moment that shifted everything. The simulation's timer was almost out. A critical checkpoint had to be secured. Blake rushed ahead, reckless, attempting to prove dominance, only to trigger a simulated mine. A loud alarm blared. Everyone froze. I sprinted forward, neutralizing the threat, directing teammates away from danger. The instructors watching scribbled notes furiously. Our squad, under my lead, finished the simulation flawlessly, while Blake stumbled behind, embarrassed, humiliated, unable to reclaim control. After the exercise, Captain Miller gathered us. The air was electric, heavy with unspoken tension. "Squad Hayes," he began, voice measured. executed with efficiency and precision. Coordination, leadership, and quick thinking saved the mission from failure. Recognition is due where it is earned. Heads turned toward Blake. He was frozen, disbelief and frustration written on his face. Derek and Marcus exchanged glances, silent acknowledgement of my leadership passing from subtle to undeniable. Ramirez's quiet nod confirmed it again. Blake tried to mutter something, an insult, a deflection, but the silence of the squad, the stern gaze of the captain, and the subtle shift in authority rendered him powerless. The humiliation he had once inflicted on me returned tenfold, and for the first time, he understood what quiet strength, endurance, and resilience looked like in action. Later in the barracks, I watched as the squad settled. The mood transformed. There was a newfound respect, tentative but present, in the way Derek and Marcus approached tasks, in the deference shown subtly to me. Ramirez remained at my side, silent, supportive, grounding. Blake isolated himself, wrestling with a bruised ego. No words, only the weight of a lesson harshly learned. That night, as I lay in my bunk, boots by the door, uniform damp from the day's exertion, I reflected. This day wasn't just about the drills or the simulations. It was about redefinition. Those who had mocked now faced their own shortcomings. Those who had doubted now witnessed the truth. Quiet endurance, unnoticed effort, and unwavering focus had shifted perception, flipped hierarchy, and created real respect. I thought of Ramirez again. His quiet support had been the anchor through every challenge, every ridicule, every moment I doubted myself. That simple, steady presence had allowed me to transform tension into leadership, isolation into strength. And Blake, he had learned painfully that arrogance and ridicule could not overcome genuine capability. Tomorrow the training would continue, challenges would mount, but today's lessons were clear. Strength isn't loud. Respect isn't demanded. Leadership is proven in the heat of trials, in the quiet choices that build trust, and in the actions that inspire, even when words fail. And I knew that the journey wasn't over. It had only taken a significant turn, one that would echo in every drill, every mission, every interaction that followed. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The early morning air was crisp, the kind that makes every breath feel alive. I stood at attention beneath the fluttering American flag, the platoon behind me arranged with military precision. Silence stretched across the yard, but it wasn't uncomfortable, it was expectant. Every eye on me, some with curiosity, others with respect, a few still masked with disbelief. Blake shifted uncomfortably in formation, trying to mask the defeat he had felt for days, while Ramirez, steady and calm as ever, stood silently beside me, the faintest nod acknowledging the journey we had shared. Captain Miller stepped forward, his boots clicking against the concrete, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every face. "Squad Hayes, report!" My voice was steady, carrying authority I had earned through sweat, pain, and perseverance. I felt it, the quiet strength that had been nurtured in the trenches, in the mud, in the long nights after drills, and in every humiliating word that had once cut deep. I gave the report concisely, clearly, ensuring every detail of the mission simulation, every lesson learned, every challenge overcome, was acknowledged. The captain's nod was subtle but heavy with approval, a seal on the transformation, and Blake's jaw tightened in silent frustration. After the report, we marched back to the barracks. The usual chatter was replaced with whispers of admiration and respect. Derek and Marcus offered small smiles, gestures of camaraderie that were sincere this time, untainted by doubt or jealousy. I noticed them, appreciated them, but I focused on the lesson I carried with me. Leadership isn't claimed. It's earned, quietly, deliberately, in ways others sometimes fail to see. Later, as the sun climbed higher, we gathered for a debrief in the squad room. The room smelled of sweat, polish, and anticipation. Captain Miller addressed the group. "Today, we witnessed the difference between arrogance and true leadership. Hayes, your execution, decision-making, and calm under pressure set the standard for this platoon. The words landed like a hammer, reverberating through the room. Blake opened his mouth, likely to argue, to deflect, to claim some imagined credit, but no sound came out. The weight of reality pressed down. Respect had shifted irrevocably, and he could neither reclaim it nor deny it. In that moment, I caught Ramirez's glance. No words were needed. He had believed quietly, acted subtly, and supported without fanfare. That silent alliance had made all the difference. And the squad, once divided by judgment and ego, now recognized strength where it had always been hidden. Quiet endurance, dignity under fire, and decisive action had rewritten the rules of respect. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the base, painting the barracks in gold, I stood outside, boots lined neatly at my feet, uniform still damp from the day's drills. Blake walked past, head lowered, the first real humility I had ever seen in him. It wasn't vindictive, it was acknowledgement, the kind that comes after recognition of another's undeniable worth. The squad's chatter had softened into stories of teamwork and lessons learned, laughter tinged with relief, respect, and a sense of belonging that I had fought so hard to claim. I reflected quietly, feeling the gravity of the transformation. I had entered this journey underestimated, mocked, dismissed. But endurance, patience, and silent effort had not only reshaped my own path, but had also forced recognition from those who doubted me most. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's measured in every choice, every calculated action, and every moment we rise when others expect us to fall. The wind carried the last echoes of the day, ruffling the flag above. Captain Miller gave a single nod as he passed, a quiet acknowledgement, and Ramirez simply stood beside me, a silent reminder that true support often speaks without words. And I knew that what had begun as humiliation had ended in respect, not through shouting or threats, but through action, dignity, and unwavering resolve. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The morning sun broke over the base, casting long shadows across the parade ground. I stood tall beneath the American flag, the wind tugging at the edges of my uniform, carrying with it the weight of every trial I had endured. Around me, my fellow soldiers snapped to attention, a silent, unspoken salute passing from their eyes to mine. Even Captain Miller, who had once seemed an immovable wall of scrutiny, offered a brief nod, subtle but full of respect. In that moment, everything, the humiliation, the struggle, the endless hours of effort, crystallized into quiet triumph. The barracks behind us were alive with whispers, glances that carried acknowledgement, and perhaps a hint of admiration, but the noise faded. What remained was clarity, dignity, and a profound sense of belonging. Looking back, I realized the real battles aren't always fought on the field. They're fought in the shadows of doubt, in the quiet moments when no one's watching, when injustice and prejudice weigh heavier than any drill or mission. I learned that strength is often silent. Resilience grows in the spaces between humiliation and courage, and respect is earned, not demanded. Brotherhood isn't about flashy gestures. It's in the steadfastness of those who quietly notice, who stand beside you when words fail. And as my journey proved, actions speak louder than words, and what doesn't kill you truly makes you stronger. So to anyone listening, remember this: your dignity, your perseverance, your quiet courage, they matter. Share your story, your struggles, and your victories in the comments below. Let others see the battles you've faced and the victories you've claimed. Hit the like button to honor those who rise against the odds, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of resilience, the bonds of brotherhood, and the enduring spirit of humanity. Walk tall, stay true, and know that even in silence, your strength can speak volumes.